You're listening to Polymatic.media, episode 33, February 4th, 2018. Welcome to the Polymaticast. Hey, John, how's it going?
Pretty good. How about you?
It's a Saturday, and I haven't checked my work email yet, so as far as I know, I'm in this blissful window of not having to work on the weekend yet.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
it's been piling up or something?
No, there's just this app that its business logic kept being added into this app that I kind of completed the end of last year, and then it got a little more denser and a little more denser, and it finally got to the point where it wasn't testing through all the scenarios exactly as my boss was expecting. So he redid this much denser, snaky workflow, which has given me a good strict, under that scenario and under that fifth parallel, past Cthulhu and over around the sun, it will go through this scenario, and
Summon
then
the
back
elder
over
gods.
this scenario, and then back through that scenario, and then through the pocket of hell, and then back all the way up through heaven, and then down through Philadelphia. And so that helped me check off a bunch of stuff, and I think there's only like one little scenario I don't think I've accounted for correctly, and I've given them those details, and I finally was able to build and commit all that stuff last night.
Because someone went live last night?
Well, just a dev, but it also made someone also made a big, huge package management updates and change, which kind of janked up the whole build process. So I had to resolve all of that stuff at the end of my day yesterday, which led me into doing finally a clean build and a deployment after I fixed up all those changes that were injected into my one tiny little JavaScript file release change.
You don't release on Fridays, especially not on Friday evenings.
Well, this is for dev, but they've been sort of harking on me to finish this thing, and then they keep adding little bits in there that keep messing up the workflow and keep messing up all the logic tracking on this thing. And so anyhow, regardless of all that, I have not seen if my boss got through testing and given me feedback yet. So I'm
just ignore the phone, see it Monday.
Yeah, well, all the pressure seems to hop back up. But it's been this thing that keeps eating away during my weekdays, any ability to relax or not be attacked by allergies. So anyhow, regardless of all that, I'm doing okay until I look up my work email and then find out I have more stuff to do that I'm not sure I understand what the problems are. So how about you?
We've been working on a new product for that we're going to add to the shop for the company I work for. And that's been complicated, so that was fun. Not as much adding it to our shop; it's more the complications of that type of product. I'll tell you later what that product actually is. But when we launch it, I'll talk a little bit more about it, because I have to deep dive into some really, really deep stuff to figure out how stuff works and how flows go for that. So
yeah, I was just this past comment that I was making about what my thing was. I'm just living in workflow hell. And that's really what it was, making sure stuff is validated.
It's mostly the external API that I have to talk to, because the external API doesn't actually do anything on the test mode. So there's a test version of it, and it just returns always the same responses. So I had to figure out how the production API works by trial and error.
Yeah.
And then I had to rebuild. I made a dummy API for that, so I rebuilt their entire API in our own system locally, in like a separate project. And basically, it mimics their API, so then I can test.
Yeah,
which is good. And I've finally done that entire thing, and now I'm actually starting to work on the actual implementation of their system.
Yeah, got you.
It's good. Their production API is fine. It's just that their test API is, not really working.
Yeah, without us leading way off on this tangent forever, but same thing. While I was working on this thing, and I've been in this sort of app hell for like 2 months, every once in a while, no, more often than not, probably through December and even in January, there were just people coming to me and say, Alan, we got this big problem. I need you to stop everything, work on this, right? So everything kind of comes in and just eats away at your possibility inside your work days, even outside your work days, that just are becoming obstacles, right?
Yeah, the whole point of being so busy during the day is that during the evening you feel like
you're burned out, and
bosses
typically
Zelda.
and bosses typically don't I don't do, and while that was happening, I saw the dentist a couple times. So my mouth was a little sore for days on end, and then also combined with allergies started kicking in, and then you take something and it just messes you up. Solves your allergy problem, but just messes you up. So all these little things are battling me, and then all the emergencies, and then all the fire drills, and so it just it gets difficult to have any concentration. And then where I work, I have probably a good 45 minutes, maybe at best an hour, of complete silence in the office. And then there's a bunch of people that sit not far from where I sit. And these guys are busting each other's balls, and they are loud all the time. And it's hard not to, even when you put music in your ears or podcasts, to not be interjected with their drama or their ball busting or their conversation. It's just like, I just need silence. I need to be able to think through the chess moves so I can get through the game.
That's why I put music on. That's why I have a headset on my head. And it's like one of those over-ear ones, like the Sennheiser ones. They close off pretty good, so that I'm really happy with that. The only problem is that they still walk to my desk and ask me stuff. So
sure, yeah.
I just want to finish this thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my health's been.
Yeah.
Very similar problems. So totally relate, totally understands. So as long as I don't check my work email, but the reality is time is of the essence. I probably should at some point, but I'm going to blissfully ignore it for at least a couple hours of my Saturday, so I'm not spending all my time doing work. So anyhow, okay. So what else should we talk about?
Yeah, we have a topic today. A good topic today.
Yeah.
Something I've been working on for a long time.
Yeah.
For now, it's like 12 years.
And thank you for creating
11
it for
years.
OG.
11 and a half years, yeah.
I don't know. In
2006?
First, well, I mean, OG's been around. It'll hit 13 years in June. So you created that probably within or just after the first year of us existing?
June-ish of 2006, I started working on it.
Okay, so 1 year after OG was in existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then that would make a lot of sense. Yeah. So it's about 12 years old, or going to be 12 years old.
Some of the code is even 12 years.
So let's just hop back for a hot minute, and I will.
We haven't actually told anybody what it actually is.
Well, I was going to give the premise. Word. So back in OG, and this is not a new thing. The originator of these link shortening services, there was one called TinyURL, and it had been around since the late 90s. And this was the case when all bookmarkable links to web pages were like 10 miles long, right? So a good, still existing example of that, go into Google Maps, any location, and copy that URL. It's much larger than 25 or 250 characters. It's just miles long. And so you could take something like that, run it through TinyURL, and they would spit back TinyURL / 123. Don't go there. I have no idea where TinyURL 123 goes.
Wasn't it Shrinkstar you guys were using before this?
Yeah. So TinyURL was kind of not the fanciest, whatever, but it was perfectly fine. And then there was this guy who came along because there was some evolution happening on the Microsoft world of stuff. MVC was in its very early phases. And there was this guy who created something called Shrinkstar. And so I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. And the links are pretty short compared to where, and this had to be probably about somewhere in 2005. So you got to keep in mind, TinyURL at this point was at least 5 or 6 years old, and all its TinyURL links were not tiny anymore.
Well, it was 2002. So that's when they registered the domain.
What, a tiny URL?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it'd been a few years old, but still the point their URL things weren't. So I was like, all right, we'll embrace this. This is kind of neat. And one of the things it had was statistics and little link clicks and stuff like that. And then the guy had a couple issues where he made some upgrades and broke stuff. And, a bunch of the Shrinkstar URLs kind of died. And then it came back. And at that point, you popped in and say, hey, I can build you something. And then we kind of went back and forth, and just to be, I don't know if we were being obnoxious or whatever, we called it Shortner without spelling it correctly.
Yeah.
And that solved our problem with having to find a good URL. I don't even know what our conversation was on the alternative names. And over the time, the iteration went from 1.0 to 2.0. What you created was a split off version we call OG Link for a Talk Generation podcast. And you had the top links and some stats and stuff in version 1.0, and eventually you created a little API interface, which we on OG use in some places for internal reasons. I created a Jabber bot. Yeah, I created a Jabber bot. Remember that guy?
You registered when the Shortner first came out. You immediately registered oglink.com. So it came straight away. So the OG Link and Shortner basically came online within a week or so.
Right. Yeah. And then we had a couple things. I had created like a .NET DLL library people could use. I created like a little WinForm app people could use.
You made a Google Talk bot. That was it.
Yeah, that's what it was, right? But it was still Jabber. If you could attach onto the Jabber network, you can get to it. Yeah, but I made a Google Talk bot that was running up my server. And I think that was about where we started with it. And this was sort of the benefit or service to our podcast, at least a Talk Generation podcast, where we could share OG Link, 1, 2, 3. Again, I don't know where that goes. No. But
I especially don't go there.
Yeah,
I think it's a good one. Good one.
But one of the things that it did is it allowed us to see what we were sharing on the show, whether it was an anime or a video game or a YouTube thing. It gave us insight to see if people were actually interested in that. So it gave me insight to say we did a thing, we shared this review, and then we could go and check how many people had clicked on the link and get a statistic off of it and go, wow, Kyle, people really liked your Steam Boy review to see what the hell you were talking about, right? And then I would have some sense of how to cultivate conversation or what was hot, what was not after the fact. And then also when OG was in the business of featuring but sharing some music during our break time, that was an upsell for me to have conversation with artists that were giving us music for us to play. And I can say, oh, well, they go, well, how does our stats look? And I would share the link with them. And they go, oh, well, 342 people downloaded my song. And it, again, would give me insight by being a partial mechanism in between and link stats. Now, since the existence of Shortner and obviously TinyURL, the one everyone knows about, that was the thing that took over the startup world, and again, not a new thing, was called Bitly, bit.ly. And then there's a bunch of clones after Bitly's popularity, right? And there's Genius, that's another one that's a little more dynamic sorting. But all the time, you had added a little here and there in the Shortner, and it has become basically a stale project until recently.
Well, what happened was I was working on some other projects. I also have an arts community that I run. Yeah. And some time went to that, and then some more work came in, and then I just couldn't work on it a lot. So.
Yeah.
So recently I just started from scratch, and I wanted to get something out there that is modern and easier to maintain.
Yeah, and some of the things that occurred throughout time, I think, that are of value to talk about. Bitly finally came up with the idea that you could pay whatever the amount is, you could pay for custom URL. So instead of being 123, you could be my really obnoxious URL thing if it's not already taken, and then you could plug whatever your thing on it. And so the only kind of iterations, and I don't know about Bitly or not, but you would put in some malware detection. Right, there's that. You had some passworded options, or this is going to go to a not safe for work flag. You had some features in there where you wouldn't recycle the link. If someone already inputted the identical one in, it would just spit back out the same URL, the Shortner URL, whatever. And then you also made it easy for yourself to be able to spin up an OG link, a Polymatic.link.
Yeah.
You're one of 3 or all 5, whatever artist site links, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean that's the basics of it. So you could create custom URL mechanisms. No, I know that was more manual than like an auto-generated thing, right?
It's about half an hour work to set up the old one. It's about 15 minutes worth for the current one.
But that's the thing that your tiny URLs, your Bitlys were not offering services like. Right. They were all come to our only one website. And then the clones out there started doing things like that. But, we weren't a player in any pond. We were just doing our own thing. Right. And neither of us were making any effort to turn this into a startup.
And there's no ads on it. So that's also a very important part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where Shortner came from, or its general origin. That's why we use it in Polymatic, because it's just our it's
eat your own dog food,
and it's just our thing, and it makes it just easier to say Polymatic.link / again, I don't know where 123 are. We haven't hit that yet. It goes nowhere.
I can make one right now that says 123 if you want.
No, that's fine. It's okay.
So I spent most of the day migrating all the stuff from the old Shortner to the new Shortner. And, Polymatic now runs on the new Shortner. So you can do custom links on there. You can do more interesting stats, although they're not public. So I might have to change that for some reason if you want to share them outside of your own account. But there's lots of new stuff that came out for this. So
so I mean, let's talk about it. Where do you want to start? I mean, I gave sort of the hot minute took was like a hot 20 minutes conversation piece. So what are the evolution? What are the changes that are important, I guess, for people to care about?
So most people won't know about the old Shortner, right? So that's a thing.
Right. Okay. So I mean, the pitch is, as I used to call it, link stats, right? You do a thing, a podcast or a website or something. If you have your own website, you have your own logs, you can see what the stats are. But when you go off-bound away from your website, you have no control of knowing how many people went from your website and were converted to the other website unless you have the logs or control over the other website, and you can look at refer links and see what the cross conversion is. Otherwise, you have no idea. So these link stat services can be really useful in this area, right? So Polymatic or Shortner 3.0 could be really useful for. So that's the use case, right? And again, everyone does a Bitly or something like that, and that's how they kind of know. But I mean, that's the general value add as a pitch. Why would I want to use?
Well, that's the
a
part
good
for
reason.
you, right?
Yeah.
But also the whole concept of having your own Shortner, like we have Polymatic, it's easier. It's good for us to get our name out there and say Polymatic link / whatever.
Yeah, it's easier to remember.
Yeah, and it's easy for people to type because they know what the name of the podcast is. And for the same thing for OG link, you just OG link / whatever, and it's easy to pronounce.
It's easy to say. It's easy to remember. Once you could train your audience, or your audience is listening to you long enough, they get that. Oh, I get it. Okay, so he's going to say Polymatic. I can ignore that. Oh, 456. Got it. So So I mean, it adds a value add for a lot of reasons. But I think these kinds of services, these link stat services, also add value for your blog, for your Squarespace site, for your YouTube, right? You see lots of YouTubers use these kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
To point you to Amazon or point you to wherever they want you to make some money off affiliate links, right?
It's also a nice way to spread spam.
It is, right, sure, in somebody's, right. You've built it in to not allow those kinds of links to be made. Again, keep in mind, we're not perfect. You can't detect everything, but
well, the thing is, the Google malware service changed their API, so I had to disable the malware check stuff because they just didn't allow it anymore. So I've been working on getting that back in.
Okay.
In the new version. So
yeah,
but that did mean that a lot of people got. There were a lot of people that were using it as for filling it with spam, so comment spam. So it wasn't a URL spam, but it was
right.
it was a comment spam that came in there. So lots of different types of medications for men's health.
God.
Let's just say that. And
really,
yeah,
that's intriguing.
There's 100,000s of links that were created by bots.
Okay.
To
I mean,
that.
people try to find a way to abuse everything. It's I will say though, very early on when you had the top recent links or whatever, I saw this one guy, and he had some kind of I don't know. I clicked on it. I go, oh, this guy's interesting. I said, he's doing something interesting. Maybe we should have him on the show. And as I was about to write an email came in from him. And he was making an OG link to say, hey, I dare you to play my funny music on your show. Blah, blah, blah. But he was saying, like, look, I listen to you guys. I love you guys, blah, blah, blah. By the way, I do this funny music thing, and I dare you to play it on my show. And I was like, yeah, okay. How about I don't play it on your show? How about I bring you on the show? And then it turns out that he's a cartoonist that has a TV show on a cable network that's popular here in the U.S. Okay. So you never know who's listening, and this gave me some insight in that little moment when we still had that feature in, where I could see someone was using OG Link, and it looked like it wasn't for OG Link, but it turns out that it was a value to us, and it was for us. Yeah. So anyhow, I didn't mean to interject. I just thought that was one of those moments where it offered something could never occur in any other scenario.
Yeah. Well, the main thing for me right now is to get it to get the new version a little bit more stable, and then get it out. And that's why I'm dog fooding this as hard as I can, because if I have to use it every 2 weeks for my own thing, then I will do it. That's why I made another one for my stuff on YouTube. And I can make as many as I want. Yes.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the advantage when you control your whole pipeline. You can make it a thing where you go in interface and go, okay, I just bought a new domain, myurldogfooding.com, and then you can just click a button and there it is.
Yeah.
So
it's not as easy as clicking a button, but hey. Also, everything is HTTPS now, so everything is...
that's good. Everything's secure.
Everything gets redirected back to HTTPS. So if you can still use HTTPS Polymatic.link/
whatever.
show 33 for every link in this episode. Yeah. So I also added something called collections. So you can have like collections of links, for example, for a show or whatever. And you can add podcasts, and we'll have a podcast page, and you can go to that podcast and see all the links for all the podcast episodes, and it'll be, visible and invisible links and stuff like that. I'm just trying to build it out more as like a service for podcasts, and then I'm going to roll it out as like a button to add a domain.
Oh, that's good.
So,
yeah, internally, so we use the existing Shortner API, right, for whatever version we're running on with OG Link. What we do is we get into the new season, and then there's a It used to be, maybe 10 or 20 new shows a season, but lately it seems to be like 40 plus some new anime and shorts coming out. And so it's turned into an obnoxious 4 shows. So the first month of the year is dedicated to all these shows. And so what we done is one of the guys had scripted in Python and a combination of other stuff. He built basically just a static website generator. We throw our links into a Google Sheet and we plug all our stuff down the format. And then he has just a thing that's constantly running, reading that script. And if there's any changes, it goes along and grabs and builds off of and gets a Shortner or OG link and then plugs it all across and statically into a website. So I used to put into our show notes all the links, but that could take me like a good hour to sit there and craft all the HTML things and all the alternative pain in the ass. So I mean, at this point, we just say what the link is, and if someone can't write that down that they're interested on Notepad or somewhere else off the side, they can roll back 10 seconds and listen to it again. Oh, okay. EIG2. Okay, good. So that's how we use it, and we kind of create a collection, except that maybe this would be the value, that kind of thing, where we have it go and generate something like this, and then we just link to that. Here's all the links for all the things we talked about before, the new season reviews, right? Because we could go through 20 conversation pieces during the show just regarding when we do those seasonal reviews. Yeah. And again, I used to spend all this time breaking them out, new shows, new shorts, new things, and then make all the links up manually. And, we got a little automated process for it. But still, it's a little kind of annoying. One day I'm going to take what he did there, the idea of what he did there, and I will plunk it into probably an app that everyone can log in, at least from the cast. You can go into, the OG networks and go through the login and go in, and there will be an internal app just for the podcast regarding this kind of thing to build that stuff out for our internal uses, So, and of course, that's where the API will come in place. But I think, I'm sure, was collections, this kind of thing, inspired by that idea?
Well, the idea behind collections is because I was working on this podcast, and every time I do all the links, and I actually just want to just press the button and then get all the links.
Go here, look at all our links for all the things.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a value add. The only thing is, this is a good to put it to a destination for a podcast, and I think if you can train your audience, convince them it's a thing to remember, then this will be a real useful feature for a lot of podcasters. And podcasts are making a comeback. Everyone's doing a podcast.
Yep. Man, I think it's the high quality podcast companies that have popped up. Of course, Polymatic.media is, of course, the greatest podcast producer ever. Hey.
Doubtful.
So many editing mistakes. So many.
I found myself recently. So I talked about Orla, right? So you led me to Orla Gartland from Hank Green, right? And so I like her music a lot. And then I found or discovered her Patreon page, and I paid whatever, $1, and was getting new demos from her because that's where she's been producing a lot of new content. It just comes out there. And then I recently kind of upselled, but inside all the patrons in there had created, like, one of them, one of her maybe original or early fans. I wouldn't call him a super fan. This guy went and created a Twitter group. And so there's a lot of live activity there and stuff like that. And so I said, usually you go in there and you they're all over the world. So it's almost at any hour, there's like 150 like new messages that since the last time you've been in. There's lots of activity. And I said, all right, good night, guys. I got to go edit a podcast. And then that led into a half-hour conversation. You do a podcast? What's a podcast? And it led into this larger conversation about, like, oh, I love podcasts. But if you had that conversation flip 10 years ago, people are like, a podcast? What is that?
Yeah.
A podcast? What?
Isn't that from that strange Dutch guy?
The
Adam Curry.
Huh?
Adam Curry.
Oh, yeah. Well, they wouldn't even know that much, right?
Yeah.
They didn't even know what a podcast was at all. So I happenstance into it. It was not, I just happened to be using a particular website that was extracting out all the media files for out of blogs. And this is pre-YouTube days, right? So what it was doing is this was sort of like it was generating RSS feeds. And I could bring that into an RSS feed consumer, and I could see, oh, okay, all the videos that ever come up with this kind of topic. And boom, I would have this feed, and I would go off and watch videos all day and night. And eventually one day I hit this thing called Daily Source Code, which was Adam Curry. And this was August 2004. Late August 2004. And then he's like pushing this theoretical idea about podcasts. And his Apple script playing around with, right? And so he's a personality who knows how to keep a conversation interesting, radio and all this stuff. So that's where my origin with podcasts started. And then everyone heard about it like somewhere in September of 2004. Then anyone who might have been in the know. And then 2006, wrestling a dozen cast of characters to do a show with me.
Yeah, character is a good description.
Was difficult. So getting them motivated, getting them interested, getting them convinced that yes, slice out a couple hours of your Sunday on a regular basis, and they were all very nervous, and we entered into it, and then eventually they had fun with it, and because it was fun for them, they kept doing it, and then people all sort of bail out over time. But that only happened out of that scenario. It would have happened earlier if I could get them sort of in a mode of understanding, right, and getting support. It took half a year or a quarter of a year to convince them that this was a good thing. And so showing them good examples of the kind of thing our podcast could be was a value for those early ones. And there are maybe 600 somewhere in 2005, by the end of 2005. So anyhow, long history of podcasts.
Podcasts or podcasts by you?
No, not by me. That didn't happen until 5 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyhow, sorry. Or 10 years later, actually, because there's 660 as of today.
So I for Shortner. So the new version.
Yeah.
Back to topic. So
off topic about an hour.
It's just 33 minutes. So for this version, I started building the API first. So my goal was to have a solid API instead of tacking it on after the fact, which is what happened to that one.
Right. Sure.
So the whole concept is that everything uses the API, even just the website itself uses the API to communicate. So there's no form submits and stuff. Well, there is some, but hey, just for submitting URLs and stuff, starting sessions is something different. But,
and this is the style of what you do when you start building what they call platforms, right?
Yeah.
You don't build a thing that does a thing, and then you know what the things that it can do, and therefore you build an interface so that other people can interface with the things that your thing can do. Instead, you already know, which is third iteration, you already know what you want it to do and how you're going to do it. So therefore, sculpt it, frame it, and then build on it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to have something that would that I can work on not constantly, but like off and on for when I want to, and I want it to be stable straight out of the gate. So,
right, yeah,
that's why I
understand
did this way. So, and that's why I'm releasing it early now, because I want to have it live and run into bugs, and then I can fix them. So yeah. Do we need to talk anything more about Shortner? I think it's not really that.
I think
topic.
If you're somebody who's got a podcast and listens, and you feel like you want to be a guinea pig, I'm making an offer. You guys just contact John. See
It's
if he'll-
great. Just tell me, right? Come on.
But with that said, I mean, it's not so much like I don't know. I don't know if there's a make profit plan on this. I have no idea. That's up to you. You've been the main developer. I just come in and I add
Use
things here and there, or I say, don't make it case sensitive. That was one. But I don't want. No, please don't make it case sensitive.
Well, there's an option now that you can do that. So.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So that's
See,
base 66?
36.
Not
we
base
did 30
66.
Oh, really?
62.
Well, if you're doing casing, yeah, sure, it would be up. It would be up. If it was just base 36, it would be numbers and letters.
But
if
doing
you-
a base 36 is easier because you can use PHP, just base convert in there. That's very easy, very
okay.
handy. So yeah, okay. So if you have a podcast and you want to try it out, just email me at podcast@Polymatic.media. I'll just get back to you on that. You can reach me there.
Yeah, cool.
It's, very easy.
I think there's value in having it. Now, I mean, there are other services, and it's not like we're competing with anything that isn't already established and someone trying to make money off of. But there are some ones that do some dynamic things that are neat. And the least only advantage that we have is you're building it, right? So
Yeah.
you have control over it. So if you want to add that kind of feature, you just have to figure out how to add that kind of feature and then build it.
Yep.
And so that's the value that we have today.
Also, no ads.
And no ads, right? Is that what like the more popular ones are doing? Or when they
all
do
of them have ads.
Yeah, right. They're making money. That's how they're making money, right? But again, like I said, my general, not intending to be a pitch, but the pitch is you can't control the things that you're sharing and seeing if your influence for influencers, what the value of your influence is, right, on that subject. And I think there's value to use a link stat service tool. And be able to at least see what those click-throughs are, despite whether you actually had some conversion impact there.
Yeah.
But now that we have all kinds of services today, it makes sense to put them in your YouTube, in your blog, in your tweets.
and even if it's just for your YouTube, in your comments, in your description. It looks a lot nicer if it has a link that is related to your own site or your own channel.
Brand, yep.
And there's a new TLD called .link, and you can use lots of you can put your name and then link, and it's probably available.
I wonder if someone's got link.link.
Probably, and I don't think
Linky
that
link.
link is probably not
Linky.link.
Let's not do
link.
that.
Yeah. Anyhow, the only irony that's funny is you share out a Shortner link and then you do it on Twitter and then they shorten it even more. And your Shortner link gets shortened, or Google's shortening link. Go for that single letter or something if you can get it. So
yeah, that's probably a good idea. I've been thinking of. Oh, let me think if I can actually share that.
My goal was always to make them readable and short. And even when they get into the high numbers, OG Link is at least old enough now and has been used long enough. And keep in mind, when people email us or something and they want to share something, they OG Link it and they put that into their email to us. Yeah. And then obviously, before you read it, you check it to make sure it's not going somewhere nefarious. But that, that's the value add that has been for us is we've been, I guess, a 12-year-old client, so to speak, and have been using it with grace pretty easily. So, it adds value. And
you've been beta testers for 12 years.
For a long time, yeah. And the advantage, at least for us at this moment, is if something broke, I can say, hey, John, it broke for whatever here, and here. And he goes, all right, I'll look at it. And then, you can iron out knots, right? And we get better by having 12 years of trials at the very least. you can say you've done that over. The only person you can't say you've done that over is TinyURL. They have more earned in hours on it than we do, but that's only because they existed years before us. So, yeah. Tried and tested functionality.
Well, the new version isn't yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, not really completely wild in public, but nonetheless. Okay, so enough about Shortner.
Yep.
And Polymatic.link. One thing I didn't link up. I started playing Staxel. Have you heard of Staxel?
You linked that. I'm pretty sure.
Did I link it? Oh, I linked something to it. Right. Yeah. Because I was going to talk about it. Yeah. Okay. Then we'll just get to it when we get to it. Alan, shut up. Okay. So where are we starting?
Well, I'm starting. We've got some fun stuff. I found a link. Found a YouTube video by Scott Manley. He was playing Martian City Builder. It kind of looked interesting. I thought that Alan might like it, so Polymatic.link/EP for that. You start, you can read your own Martian city, and then rocks fall on top of it or something.
Yeah, I looked at it. It looks interesting.
But it's not public yet, I think. So.
Oh, right. It looks interesting. I don't know how much of a time sucker vampire it will be if I was to buy it. I don't know. I gotta wait for that impulse to occur. But it looked interesting. Yeah. And then that was Polymatic.link/EP, right?
EP, yes.
Yeah. So Staxel, right? I was talking about. So I found this guy. I was just curious to see if there's any Let's Plays out there. So Staxel, Polymatic.link/EU, and I found this channel called Vintage Beef. And this guy, I saw him playing Staxel. Now, at this point, I had already played probably 4 or 6 hours of Staxel myself. So I already been wherever he's going. And the only thing that was attached my interest to this guy to see how he's doing in Staxel, every time he does an internal episode for it, he seemed to be really, really excited about catching bugs. Really excited about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't gotten a bug net catcher yet. All right, let me try that. And then, again, I learned something by what he did that I didn't do. Yeah. So anyway, what Staxel is, my observation, I never played Animal Crossing, but I've heard a lot of positive, addictive, awesome things about it. Never played it myself. And so I got in there and it kind of reminded me of if Minecraft was doing something like an Animal Crossing. And it's 3-dimensional, and it's not bad, and it's sort of open world and allows you to explore. And your idea is that you have little side campaign things you can do if you want to do them, and they do add some value, and you interact with locals that are in there, and those locals will ask you to do something that might socialize, just sort of it doesn't lead you anywhere dramatically, but might give you some insight about a campaign you could go run, whatever. So, and then sometimes they say, oh, well, my fishing dock broke. If you would build me, and they will give you items and stuff for you to build and do a campaign. And then, that just progresses other little elements inside. But you could just run around mining resources, basically, to build things, to build a bigger house, to get better things, right? And so it's interesting. I like it. It does definitely eat up a lot of time. All these things do. It allows me to kind of explore the stuff I can do. Oh, I want to buy one of those things, or I want to try to build one of those things. How do I do that? Oh, well, you need these things. Okay. And it's that kind of thing, how you can kind of upgrade and upsize into. And then you can have animals. You can have a chicken or an animal, a pet, a cat or a dog, or cows or whatever, right? You can you have an active farm, and you plant, you till things, stuff like that. But so it has interaction with locals, and you can also, one of the things, this is also sort of early access as well. But the one thing that's kind of neat, which I did accidentally once, and I realized, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. You can loot or steal from other people. You can go into their house and steal all their possessions and steal their bed, and and it might make that character angry But again, it's just this thing where it's not a perfect intelligent world, right? You go into the grocery store and start stealing money from out of the register, that kind of stuff. So, but one of the things that's kind of nice that I like about it compared to, let's say, Minecraft, you can get yourself completely lost if you're just chopping down trees everywhere or collecting seeds, and you can go off into the fields forever and then get completely lost. And one of the options under the escape is teleport home, and boom, you're back home. So you can go explore without any concerns or trying to get track or whatever. And there's a little 3-dimensional map option, which I've not figured out how to engage yet. So anyhow, it's kind of fun. And this will lead you to maybe one of those Let's Play people. Polymatic.link/EU. I don't know. I'm enjoying it.
Are you moon-based out?
No, Moonbase is a casual thing. It's like I got 15 minutes to fill. I don't really feel like going to sleep yet. There's nothing to watch, nothing to do. I got an hour to kill. I'll Moonbase, right? So it's just it's a thing that it's what's caught my attention at the moment. However, it made me think about, oh wait, there's this thing called Stardew Valley, and I heard about it. And so I know a couple people who really like it. So I went and I looked at
It's
Let's
on the
Play.
Switch. You can get it on the Switch.
I think you can download it in Steam as well.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I saw it in Steam. So I was watching a video on it, and I was watching a Game Grumps video on it. And I go, wait, this seems like the leading intro to Staxel. Very similar. So I thought that was kind of funny. So maybe if I'm all Staxeled out, I might go over to Stardew Valley for a little bit. I don't know. So there was a long conversation piece about it, but I mean, at least take a look at Vintage Beef and see how excited he is to catch bugs. Yeah. So there you go.
I've been playing a lot of Zelda, and I've been looking into how they did it and stuff like that. So there's lots of videos about that online. I just found this one, and I was like, yeah, this is an interesting one. It's about the whole development process for Breath of the Wild and how they used to have a moment where they were going to do UFOs flying overhead and stuff. So very interesting video. Polymatic.link/F0 shows you the beta version and the final release, stuff like that. And
so you're encouraging me to buy a Switch just for one game?
It is so worth it. It is actually so worth it. This is the first game in years that I actually really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Okay. I really like Minecraft, but I like this one better.
Yeah. I think this is, like, for example, you hear me just talking about Staxel. I think by comparison, so Breath of the Wild, you're not designed to do a focused thing. You can't just have a farm and just stay doing that for 90 years.
You can decorate a house if you want.
You can create a house, right? Where you can create a home. But
the entire game is different, right? So it's an open world, but there's no farming, no digging into the ground and stuff like that, right?
Right.
So there's not that type of open world.
It's about looting and adventurous finding things and
leveling up
internal
your
quests.
Gear and then losing all your gear because they break. So
right, okay.
There's lots of stuff in there, but we should do an episode on Zelda at some point. Now this is the first Zelda game that I played, so I really love this game.
Yeah.
So apparently the first Zelda game actually was open world too. But it was like top-down view.
Was it? Well, I thought the first Zelda goes all the way back as far as, I don't know, maybe even Game Boy stuff? I don't know. I don't know my history, but I know people who do. And I've never spent enough time caring to listen to all the Zelda details because I hear them a lot. But to that point, I think Zelda has been a franchise inside Nintendo for a long time. That's truthful. I just don't know how far back it goes.
Yeah, I really don't care. I just like this version of the game. I've seen other games, and I've always been like, yeah, maybe should I play this game? No, I'm not going to do that.
I think I'm in the universe where you can get lost a little bit, right? So Staxel is eaten up, probably without looking, probably more than 10 hours of my time, doing it a little bit here and there. After work in the middle of my night.
I think I have about 70 hours of Breath of the Wild right now.
Right, yeah.
And that's since the day before Christmas. That's when I bought myself a Switch.
Minecraft and these open world and these kinds of things, you can totally get lost into making your own campaign or proceeding along a path that the game generally will guide you through. That's the advantage. And, probably a little Game Boy version of Zelda was you had to achieve a thing and, this is the franchise and this was your goal. And 15 hours later, you were done. Where in this case, you could spend 1,000 hours on it and still be satisfied, right?
Well, the thing is, there's so many hidden things, so many secrets hidden everywhere, and that's the link that I shared last time we podcasted. The whole story about how deep this game is. It's just a very big surprise for me that I wanted to get the game because people were saying, "Hey, it's a good game. You should go get it." And I was like, Okay, get a Switch because also the Switch looks good. So, it's like, yeah, I'll get a Switch. It's a fancy new thing.
Yeah, but if I do this, I'll never do anything else outside of work.
But listen, you drive to work in Uber, right?
No, not always.
You get driven a lot?
I carpool with people. So the point is I don't really have that commute time isn't really long enough or open enough. It's not like I'm on a train for 2 hours one way. Because even when I commuted into the city and it was 45 minutes, it was a pretty, I could not zone out, right? It's the same thing way I'm on an airplane. Unless I'm on a one-way direction for like 6 hours, I cannot sort myself down to not be on alert. So if you were going to go, well, there's a commute thing you can do. Yeah, I don't know. I can half do it with podcasts, but that's about the extent of it.
Cool thing about the Switch is that you can take it anywhere, and it's also a console you can put in your TV. So that's very cool. I
think the value of it is it's kind of like the laptop anywhere you want it, thing, or the value for the portability is when I am hanging out with friends for a weekend. Then yes, it would be a real huge value right there because I know I already have friends who all have Switches. So
there's lots of small games like, for example, Gungeon. So it's Dungeon with a G.
Yep.
And it's like where you play. It's kind of like a roguelike deal where you just go out and shoot things until you die, and then the game is over. But you can play it with multiple people. And the same thing for Crawl. We have like they're tiny little games, and dungeon style games. There's lots of party games you can just get on the App Store for that. So, or on the game store in the eShop, Nintendo eShop. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got Zelda, and that's the only game that I bought that I have that I bought with like a cartridge so far.
Right. Yeah. And didn't lick, I should say.
I didn't lick it.
Link.
Also, I have Minecraft on it. Of course
really?
Yes.
Yeah, but those things are not like, unless you're doing it to like a Realm server, they're not, you can't continue to vest the same world in all places.
Yeah. Well, you can you can go onto online stuff. So.
Right, yeah. You go to Realms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so that was Zelda.
Polymatic link /F0.
F0. Yep. Okay, so I got one. Okay, this is not, I found it funny. I'm not a millennial. But it does, even though it's humorous, it is really explaining the problem today.
As soon as somebody said millennial, I was like, okay, close.
Oh, no, you should have watched it. It really goes into the iteration, really hits all the sore points.
College humor doesn't have humor. So.
Even if you are a millennial, I would think this is still funny because it might be more therapeutic than funny, but nonetheless, Polymatic.link/EQ. I thought it was funny. This really explains the problem of people claiming labels on things and then not actually maintaining an actual standard of meaning. It's also, I think, is more related to the internet problem and people believing and defining whatever they want because they think they can and they should. And that's how they make themselves feel special. And this is not a new problem since the 2000s. This has been a problem for decades. So, Polymatic.link/EQ. Yeah, I labeled it as, are you what? There you go. That was real lame. There you go. Just move on. All right, so, John.
Yeah. So people have been coughing around me, and they've been having the flu.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should wear a face mask when they have the flu. Yeah. So, I saw this video recently because Casey Neistat shared this on his video because he left Beam. So Polymatic.link/EZ for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's about face masks and why people in Asia wear those and stuff like that.
Yeah. I will say it's not just the face mask. That's part of it. I will also say it has a lot to do with how sanitary you are. I've worked in various places where certain bathrooms people were all sick and not being very sanitary. And then I was like wiping everything down, anything I ever touched anywhere along those places. And I healed and everyone's remained coughing and sneezing and whatever. So face masks are part of it.
Also trick is don't sneeze in somebody's face.
Right.
And don't cough in somebody's face. It's also a very good one. I've seen people do that recently.
Or near around someone's pube
and
or something like that.
don't touch your face.
Yeah.
That's also a very good way not to get sick.
Mm-hmm. The other little thing that I will share where the face mask proves a point. I work in an area where there's lots of cubes, and you hear someone in the distance go, sneeze, and then cough, whatever. And then a few minutes later, someone near them will do the same exact thing. And then it's coming for you. And then you do the same thing. You sneeze and you cough, and then all the people around you all do that within the quick succession. And then it just moves on its way around the office.
It might also be a sympathetic thing, right? So
it could be. I think so for some people. For me, never the case. Like I feel the real thing. I don't feel a reason to cough.
Well, if it's an allergy thing.
Yeah, which has been what's been killing me lately.
Yeah. So it might be drifting in through one area, and then they're all allergic to that thing, and then they cough and sneeze.
As I mentioned earlier, I took an over-the-counter thing. It solved my one problem, but it mucks with my concentration or my ability to concentrate and not be distracted. So, that's also the non-drowsy stuff also tends to make me drowsy.
It's lies.
Yeah,
lies.
Yeah. All right. So I got one. This is interesting. I'm calling it metal on wax, but the truth is you should just go watch the video. Polymatic.link/ER. Did you watch it?
Yes.
And what'd you think?
It's horrible music.
Oh, I'm not into the music, but I thought it was interesting. I mean, you never thought how this, you think of what would EDM sound like on a wax cylinder from, the 1920s or whatever. No idea. Watch the video. Maybe not EDM, but metal music if you're into it. So Polymatic.link/ER.
Okay. Cody made a video where he goes into a thing about refining gold by adding more silver to it, so it is easier to refine. Polymatic.link/F2, and he goes into a little Minecraft world and stuff. So it's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, oh, that's pretty creative. And I was like, I wonder if he did a script thing or if he's just not whacking out. Okay. Also, just thought that was a pretty good way of describing this. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. What we're really learning is why alchemy existed. Right, it's still alive and strong, and Cody seems to demonstrate it quite a bit. So that was Polymatic.link F2.
Yes.
All right, so this link that I have, Nintendo Labo or Labs or whatever. I saw this video. It's like Nintendo Run channel, YouTube channel. And I grabbed this just for you, John. Polymatic.link/es.
Yeah, I've already seen it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have, but I thought, oh, I'll grab it anyways. Okay.
That's basically the cardboard thing where Nintendo made devices, air quotes, with cardboard, and then you can put your controller for your Switch into that, and then control the Switch.
Yeah, a little
games.
piano. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was kind of cool. It reminded me of like Google Cardboard kind of thing.
I wonder how long that will last.
I don't know, but it was neat.
Okay, so Polymatic.link/es for that.
Yeah.
Did you see the next one?
I did not.
Go watch it right now.
Is this
because
guy,
I want to know what you think about this.
This guy electrocuting himself again. This is a good video. Oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
No, I mean, with that said, I hope no one thinks that's real.
Okay, so the next video, Infinity Energy Generator. Alan just watched this. Polymatic.link/f1. Can you describe it in a few words?
There's a cat. It's spinning. And it is not a real energy machine.
Yeah, but it's funny.
Did that explain it without ruining it?
Oh, you kind of ruined it, but hey, Polymatic.link/f1 for that. Just go watch it. It's very funny.
If you listen to my response, it was funny. It is funny. So it was Polymatic.link/f1. Okay, so moving along. Okay, this is how to explain this. Did you watch this video?
I kind of skimmed it.
Okay. See, that's the part you made the mistake. You should just let it go and let it guide you as a storyline. But Polymatic.link/et. This is a guy who is one of those people that has made money on the side out of doing fake reviews for restaurants because he's been paid. And so he got this novel idea that he should, out of the absurdity of that, he wanted knowing how to rank on TripAdvisor, how to get things confirmed and, how faulty of a system it is. He basically decided that he was going to take his shed that he lives in, is basically his little shack behind someone's house that he rents that's overpriced in London, and turn it into a artificial restaurant on TripAdvisor and get it to be number one in the ratings. By having him and his friends create fake ratings. And then he made this absurd, not realistic restaurant where they don't serve you food like you go in and you get a ham sandwich from them. No, they serve you moods.
Yeah, I saw that part.
And so he was successful at making it number one. And then he had a burner phone. People were calling him every little bit at night, and he just said, "Oh, we're booked up." And eventually he decided somewhere along into it, all right, I'm going to actually allow people to show up. And I'm going to tell them it's a press night. And boom, this is the story. I ruined some of it for you, but you want to see the whole adventure. Before he allowed it to collapse, right? It was a joke that went way too far, and he kept it going. And so this is what make you think, give yourself some insight about, like, when you look at Yelp or TripAdvisor or any of these online sites or even on Foursquare, where are these reviews actually coming from? If someone's got a strong review, is that actual organic, or were they paid for it, or right? So that's it. Polymatic.link /et. The guy basically turned his apartment, his little, I don't know, less than 1,000 square foot apartment, probably 600 square foot apartment or so, I think he says in the video, into a restaurant, and made it the best restaurant that you couldn't get into in London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some music. Polymatic.media/EO for MB Sons, and I already like this music because it's they use voices of people
Oh,
to
really?
create a like crowd noises, and then somebody's saying something, and that builds up and stuff, and it's pretty good. Go check it out.
Okay, cool.
Polymatic.media.
EO. I haven't listened to it yet, so I'll have to give you some input. So I won, based on your recommendation last time we podcast, I won and I listened to, I've been on and off listening to Spotify when I can. And so I looked at Discover Weekly. And so for me, I think you have to constantly be active on Spotify for I think it to yield some real active value, because the first week or two, what it was doing for me was it was reinforcing my already existed discovered music bubble. Yeah. Of things, and it was doing covers of someone else's cover of a thing of an artist I listened to cover or remix or 90 of these remixes, and that's what it was doing. It was threadlining things. I was hoping it was going to open me up to more than it already, things that would be out of my bubble and give me some insight and allow me to rate it and then guide me in and then give me better. Stuff.
It won't go out and do like a completely different thing. It won't. If you have lots of EDM stuff in there, it's not going to put metal in there.
And so it was just seemed to be reinforcing the bubble. Now, with that said,
it does tangent into different things, right? So if there's some artist that's related to something else, then it might put that artist in there for you. At least that's what I've seen.
So before pre-Spotify, I had been collecting a list of people that I heard through whatever. Over time, and say, oh yeah, that seems pretty good. I'll do whatever Ella Voss eventually, and then eventually when I bought a lot of stuff, and from there Spotify had hit those tenants a couple times and show me 2 or more songs than I had heard before from someone already on my existing list, and so I have a lot, but there are just a few that every time I hear them come up randomly locally on my phone, being shuffled on my phone, not through Spotify. I'm just going to share these people that I've been listening to that I've really liked the collection of stuff that they have available. So the first one up is Phoebe Ryan and Polymatic.link EV. There's this guy, this artist, who is like Zed or like Dave Guetta, where they are the remixer that is the highlighter, right? They work with multiple artists and they make a remix for them for one of their B-side albums or whatever it is. And their collection of stuff spreads across multiple artists. And this person or this artist doesn't have a lot of stuff, but A-OK, Polymatic.link/EW, and they're just 2 or 3 of his songs that I really like. And then I've gone and gotten that featured, collaborating artists, and I've gotten some of their music, and maybe one day they'll show up on Music Corner. And then last, B. Miller is another person that, again, through the mixture of my own discovery and reinforcing by Spotify, Polymatic.link/EX. And that is B. Miller. And these are some artists that I've been listening to.
What does B. Miller do?
She's not an electronic sound. So what's been happening lately that I've noticed in sort of this pseudo pop scene, the people that are outside of like the major market music, like Katy Perry, for example, is they swing, like Ingrid Michaelson, they swing into not necessarily pop, but a little more dramatic kind of alternative sound. Then eventually every once in a while they go super pop. And what's been happening lately is intermixing with like a little EDM remix into their primary album, where they're a little electronic, a little alternative, all at the same time. So they can go into a real soulful sound, they can go into a real pop sound, and they go into a mixture of pop plus or collaborating with like a remixer where they take one of their soulful sounds and they remix it into a good like EDM like remix. And so B and Phoebe Ryan both kind of hit that zone really well.
Okay.
Now, it's not the sort of the ambient environmental stuff that I know in the past you've recommended as something that you really like. I didn't try MB yet, so I don't know what that comparison is.
Yeah.
So, but it still falls in that zone of more pop than not.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check it out. Okay. So we got some books. Well, just one book. Off to Be the Wizard. Oh, it's a very entertaining book so far. I've not finished yet, but a guy finds out that the world is actually a program, and he decides to have fun with it. So that all is fun and games until the authorities find out. So Polymatic.media/F3, and I don't think I can describe this any better, but this is a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Does it matter whether you're into programming or not, or understand it at all?
Nah. If you know enough, then you know that the things that are mentioned, right? So he gets a file from an FTP server, and then he changes the file on his machine or something. A little bit strange.
Got you. I understand. It's the thing
he uses a terminal and emulator. Right? So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I get it. For those who are in the know, usually you understand you're going to ruin your entertainment experience if you're
but I didn't let
getting too stuck into...
It doesn't go that far into it. It just explains that he has access to it, and then he builds an app for himself to do certain things, and then...
Got you. Right. It's lampshading a thread line of a point that isn't necessary to explore.
He has an escape button, and fail-safe button that he presses at some point. So that's fun. Yeah, really cool.
Okay.
So for all the links that we shared today, Polymatic link/show 33. I'm not going to do all the shows from the past and link all them, because that's going to be a very painful experience for me. I'm just going to do it for this one, and then for the next one, and the next one, and the next one, because I'm going to do it anyway. So yeah.
Okay.
Polymatic link/show 33. Okay, Alan, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter. It's a good place. CHAESS. I've been trying to be a little more ever present there. Yeah.
Okay, you can find me on Twitter as well, WebDevy, WEBDEVVIE. For feedback, you can reach us at podcast@Polymatic.media. Our Twitter is The Polymatic. The music in this episode is by Seuns, which you can find at Polymatic link/EK. Our website is Polymatic.media, and I hope you tune in next time.